trans women getting pregnant is not as far off as you'd think.
Come with me to the first ever FatCon.
I think we need a transgender president.
What in the hills have eyes is this? The hills have eyes. The hills have gender dysphoria, apparently.
They're kicking me out of my hotel room because I asked them to wear an N95 mask.
I don't know what to do. I brought a situation entirely on myself, and now I can't deal with it.
God is non-binary. It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
All right, you guys, it is that time again. I'm a bit scared, but we're going to react to woke TikToks.
Being misgendered can be an incredibly painful experience. It's a reminder that the world places us in a doesn't change.
Hey, bro.
Hey, what's up? Have you heard the good news?
Are you pregnant?
That's not possible.
Blossom finally got a good wig?
That's even less possible. Even better. I'm going on tour. I am so excited to be doing a live version of my podcast at the Blair White Project all over America and Toronto, Canada. Each show will have a signing, a meet and greet, a special hangout for VIP fans, and a portion where you can grab the mic and talk to me, ask me questions, drag me. Don't do that. I would say my podcast is pretty uncensored, but imagine how uncensored we can get together in person. I'm a little scared. We're stopping in Austin, Phoenix, Washington, D.C., Brooklyn, Atlanta, Toronto, Canada, Minneapolis, Chicago, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, and Nashville. Get your tickets now at x1entertainment.com/Blair White, link in the description. You guys know I have not done any in-person events in years, literally. So I don't know when the next time this is gonna happen. This is something very special for the Blair White Army. So if you're a member of the Blair White Army, I'm going to need you to make sure you don't miss the Blair White Takes America tour. See you soon.
I think we need a transgender president. And here's why. There is no greater struggle than being trans. You're constantly hated. You're constantly... people want to unalive you just because of who you are.
What in the hills have eyes is this? The hills have eyes. The hills have gender dysphoria, apparently. You know, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with Azizer that we do need a transgender president, and that will in fact be me in a few decades. However, I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that you're not in fact going to be voting for me. Let me try to fight for your vote right now. Hear me out. Hear me out. The first thing I will do upon being elected into office is investigate whatever the kind of nuclear experiments were done in your hometown, baby boy, baby girl, baby they, because it's severe. We're going to need some accountability for that. But by the way, can I just make the larger point rather than just poking fun of this person? It really is sick how this population of people, transgender, whatever you think of them, the only thing that we really can agree on, if you're like in your right mind, right? If you're propagandized and you're blue pilled, then you're going to disagree with this, but this is just an objective truth. It's a community that struggles with mental illness, usually multiple, it's usually not just one thing. And it is a crime that this person was diagnosed as trans or having gender dysphoria and put on hormones. The fact that you can't, you can just see it's something else. So that's sick. It's also sick that the method of utilizing these people to mobilize votes, to mobilize political power, is to keep them in a constant state of fear. Like the libs, the shit libs, the commies, they have no problem utilizing mentally ill people for their political gain. And that in itself is some demonic ass, evil ass shit.
Come with me to the first ever FatCon. Yes, that's right, haters. There is a convention just for us fats now. There were so many amazing panels, ranging from Fat Liberation 101 to Fat-lesque to Fat Nerds. I even talked on a panel with the Plus Bus on 101 ways to lose the weight of fat hate. There was an amazing plus-size fashion show featuring multiple designers. This one's Chub Rub. I came out to vend and help with the Plus Bus with a few pieces that I carry in their store. They had an incredible vendors hall with all fat artists, designers, plus-size vintage.
Wow. One thing I will give them is, the catering was off the chain that day. They clearly did their big one with catering. There is no way. The shit that people make an identity out of is just so insane. And as usual, it's overwhelmingly white because this gives, white people minority status. It's like There's so multi-tiered. There's so many layers of like why this has come to be. The first one is white guilt. That's why it's overwhelmingly white people that do this. The second one is the fact that we've been so poisoned that people have like just succumbed to it. Like,
fat phobia should make you uncomfortable because it is intertwined with every single other system of oppression that exists. It is related to sexism, racism, phobia, xenophobia, classism. And so when you talk about one, you talk about it all.
also, I just have to say, there's like, this is a bit of a tangent, but not really. It is related. I am so over the Ozempic, semaglutide, like weight loss shot slander. I actually cannot stand people that slander these drugs. I understand that they are not perfect, and I understand, you know, that there's a stigma attached to them, but I am just really not vibing with the fact that so many people for so long were having this conversation, as they should have, that we're in such an obesity epidemic. And then, you know, drugs come along that can solve that issue for almost, I mean, every person in this room would benefit from Ozempic, semaglutide, etc. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what about the health, you know, risks of Ozempic? It's like, granted, I'm never on my knees for Big Pharma. However, what about the, you know, health consequences down the line of Ozempic? You're right. However, we know the health consequences of being fat. We know the health consequences of perpetual obesity, which is incoming death, diabetes, heart disease, cancer. Like, we know that. So like the unknowns of like what Ozempic will do in the future, that's a valid conversation. But I'm really not appreciating the fact that like these drugs are just shot down so much when it's like, I'm sorry, it could literally cure this problem massively. And if there are health complications from these drugs going forward, I mean, that's the case with every drug, but the health consequences of being obese, we know, like they're just going to die. So I do in fact encourage, you know, them to get on Ozempic. In fact, I would venture to say Ozempic is saving America. All the celebrities are skinnier, which is a just better representation of America in general. Lizzo is on her way out. I mean, taking L after L after L, she being mocked in South Park because of Ozempic. Like, the fat is leaving the station now. And I guess I just am a bit peeved by people that are fighting the thing that's pushing its way out. I mean, let's have that conversation after everyone's not morbidly obese.
Like, she's huge, but she's so beautiful. She's a mammoth, of course.
I know he's not a fascist, but it's more just of getting the community together to just go against it.
A lot of people said he's not actually a fascist. So then why call him a fascist?
Well, I don't know the exact definition of a fascist, so I don't know if he is or isn't a fascist.
I beg your biggest pardon, bitch. Why are people so comfortable being stupid? Why is that such a comfortable position and role in life to play for so many goddamn people? This is like one of the most annoying TikToks I've ever seen in my fucking life. It's crazy the ease at which she just said, yeah, I don't really know what it means. I'm just lying to gain political favor. I mean, that's really these college protesters in a nutshell, right? I mean, I would love if we lived in a reality where like people protesting in colleges were kind of like in the vein of like old school people protesting the war, the people in the 60s, the people in the 70s. It's really not that. It's really a bunch of brain dead bitches now. I mean, the colleges have been captured, so it's literally intentionally churning out pitifully dumb people. That's clear. Girl, you are way, way too used to being stupid and never being challenged. I mean, it's really just par for the course, right? Fascist, Nazi, Hitler, like all these words for Trump. And it's just like, I saw something the other day, the Grand Wizard. Like, the fact that y'all have such little respect for the victims of these things, first of all, I mean, to compare people to things that have really victimized like millions of people across the globe, to care so little about that, to degrade those words to such a degree simply because your brains have been degraded to that degree is just a little bit wild for me.
Trans women getting pregnant is not as far off as you'd think. In the past 10 years, 50 babies have been born from a uterus transplant. How this works is a person with a damaged or missing uterus gets a new uterus. Then they get pregnant.
What about people with damaged brains? I'm gonna need you to look into what we do with them. Shit like like this makes me like not want to be trans. I'm not kidding. It sounds like a crazy shit like this makes me not want to be trans. And sometimes if I'm just going to be so real, I actually question like, okay, so am I trans? Am I trans or am I something like else?
I am disgusted.
And is it, you know, just my own sort of psychological desire to be disassociated from these creatures that causes me to think that way? Or is it that maybe I actually am objectively so different than these people that like I'm someone that can maybe be described as like a gender dysphoric person that like handled it in my own way or whatever? It's like, I guess the word trans fits for that, but like I just see no similarities between the way like my brain works with these people. And like I just wonder if a different word should be used. I mean, the word is crossdresser clearly, but like I have no control over how people are using the word trans anymore. And so it's almost like I need to just throw it out. And I hate that people have even like asked me this like hypothetical question, demented question. Would you have a uterus implant and get pregnant if you could, Blair, if science gets there? No, but you know that baby's coming out fucked up if I were to do that. That baby is coming out fucked up from the womb up. And just even the way that they disrespect women, like I swear to God, I am not trying to be Captain Save-A-Ho for women. But as someone who is perceived as a woman in the world and has often, you know, experienced negative things for that, it is something that does, you know, strike a chord with me that like they refer to women as people with uteruses. That's just a woman, actually. It's not a person with a uterus, right? That's just a woman. It's more than just being an incubator for like children. The existence of being a woman, it's actually so much more than that. It's not a person with a uterus. It's not a front hole. It's not a fucking whatever demented language you can think of. It's really none of those things. And I swear to God, have never related to this weird aspect of so many trans people that I see that they want to be a woman. I know it sounds so like, it's a bit abstract, right? And you kind of have to stick with me when I explain this, but it's not that like me being trans means that I ever wanted to be a woman. I know that sounds so contradictory because it's so antithetical towards like the talking points and like what trans is discussed as and described as, which is like a man who wants to be a woman. Actually, for me, it was just about living in a body I feel comfortable with and mitigating gender dysphoria as a medical condition. I was never under any impression or misconception that me transitioning would make me a woman. But never was there any part of me that was like, this will make me a biological woman. So the idea of like giving birth, it's like never on the table. And even if it is somewhere on the table, I mean, the selfishness of that baby's coming out up. And you know it.
The American flag scares me. To me, waving the American flag is the equivalent of declaring yourself a KKK member or a Proud Boys or whatever. It just indicates that you are white supremacist. It indicates that you are a settler, colonial piece of shit. Sorry. Not sorry. If you fly the US flag, you are ideologically a settler, colonial piece of shit and a colonizer.
This is a deeply unwell woman, and can someone please point Miss Trick here to an airline website and explain to her that there are in fact flights leaving America about every hour? She can in fact leave. You know, this is not an insult I typically use, but this bitch has been ran through. Mentally, of course, ideologically, brainwashed, right? Like, I think it's one of the biggest one of the darkest aspects about modern politics is that if you fly an American flag, there is basically an assumption that is almost always correct, almost unanimously true, that you're a Republican or voting for Trump or on the right in some way. And that's just so sick to me that we've become such a nation where we have one political party that feigns that they love the country. So they'll say things like we're voting for democracy, but in fact, they hide from showing an American flag. And if there's an American flag in someone's bio, it's going to 9 times out of 10 make them a Republican. That to me is a very dark statement about where we are as a country. And hoes like this really make me believe in like NPCs. Like for me, it's just like, there is no way this is a real person. This is really a person who shaves their head bald, gets a BLM fist on their chest and goes and rants and uses as many buzzwords as they can possibly use. Colonizer, white supremacist, racist, KKK, but like, you are deeply unwell, bitch. But the sad thing is that, like I always say, if you're retarded, I'm sure this TikTok does slap. That's the really, really sad part. How many unconscious people we have who just hear a bunch of things like KKK, white supremacists, wave flag, you're bad. And it's like to them, you could not be speaking the gospel anymore. Doesn't matter if any of the sentences connect. Doesn't matter if anything makes sense. You can just say a bunch of shit, run off as many buzzwords as you can fit in the length of a TikTok, and you can feign like you're some sort of intellectual. Some sort of intellectual heavyweight. You're a heavyweight, but far from an intellectual.
As a parent, how can you support your child's gender identity? By the age of 2, a child can understand the differences in gender. And by 3, they're able to identify if they are a boy or a girl. When a child hits the age of 4, they have a pretty stable understanding of what their gender identity is.
Don't make me do the quote. Don't make me do my very overused but accurate at this point quote. A transgender 4-year-old is like a vegan cat, babe. We all know who's making the lifestyle choices. Interestingly, this bitch also looks like she would in fact have a vegan cat. And again, the problem of people who feign as intellectual heavyweights when they're just in fact heavyweights, not actually intellectuals, is such a deeply rooted issue. It really is. It's ruining society. The fact that she believes that a 4-year-old can understand. Okay, so here's the thing. Toddlers and children, yes, they start to recognize gender traits at that age. But the idea that someone at that age can understand what trans is an entirely different conversation. An entirely different conversation that not even you and your little frontal lobe are developed enough to have, nonetheless, a child, babe. That's really the gag. Your frontal lobe, your prefrontal cortex is so underdeveloped that you can't even have this conversation in a way that is enlightened and or remotely intelligent. So the fact that you think a child can is sick. This is why I say all the people who are like, Chris Tyson set the trans community back so far. Really? Granted, disgusting human being Chris Tyson, clink, clink, jail, please. However, this is what y'all are doing outside of that. You think you were on such a winning streak before Chris Tyson. I'm sorry to inform you, you were in fact not. You were making no sense, making yourselves look terrible before that. And part of that is that you let boring, basic ass Betty name like this woman speak for you and say nonsensical shit like a 4-year-old can know if they're transgender. That is some demented shit.
I don't know what to do. I have no answers. They're kicking me out of my hotel room because I asked them to wear an N95 mask. And they said that if I wanted that, I was at the wrong hotel and I had an hour to leave. I don't know where to go.
I don't know what to do. I brought a situation entirely on myself and now I can't deal with it.
Looks like you finally left TikTok. Welcome to the real world. Welcome to the real world, Miss Genocide. We've reacted to this trick a few times. Yeah. People are not wearing masks in 2024, hun. Some of us weren't wearing them even in 2020. And this is the number they've done on people. Again, y'all want to talk about bitches who are ran through. Look how ran through she is. Neurologically, ideologically. Ran through. Gangbanged by government, corporate media, influencers. It's very sad, actually. And it's not that I want to come across as not having empathy for this person, because this clearly is a multi-tiered problem she is dealing with internally here. However, I just don't have empathy for people that take it out on other people. I don't have empathy for commie ass who walk around trying to thrust power on other people and try to force people, you have to wear a mask. Like, what are you talking about? No one has to do shit. It's clear that Elon Musk is correct. It is in fact a mind virus. If you can't tell this is a contagious sickness, I don't really know where your head's at. I have empathy for whatever, mental stuff this person is going through, but I do in fact not have empathy for the fact that you around and found out. Miss bitch, you around and found out. You tried to take that weirdo TikTok shit into the real world and you got shut down. I want to die. Burn it all to the ground. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. There's no point arguing anymore. We've fallen, babe. Jesse Lee Peterson, you were correct. We are in a fallen state. Public shooting. I would have gone to jail that day seeing this shit. Whether or not I was that child's parent or not, just a random passerby, I think I would have swung. I think I would have caught a case. And it's Texas, so my ass would have been in a men's prison, girl. Running it, by the way, I've actually heard, okay, so here's the thing. Everyone talks about how it's like really unsafe, tangent, for trans women to be in like women's prisons, but I've heard they kind of run the shit in men's prisons. You're kind of like a queen in men's prisons. Bad things happen to them, of course, too, rape and all that, but I've heard that they kind of run it. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, this abomination. Furries. I'm not going to go full fash and say you can't do your little suit thing, but definitely not public suiting. That's going to have to be a no. You're going to go to jail for that shit in America. That makes sense to me. So I told you the first thing I'm going to do as president. The second thing is making whatever this is illegal. This demented ass shit.
God is non-binary. If man is made in God's image and woman is made in God's image, and there's one God, well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it?
I just came back from the dead. God told me you're still going to hell. You're going to hell for this TikTok. In particular, Mr. Jeffrey Marsh, God is non-binary. I'm pretty sure God is not the thing that y'all invented in 2014. I mean that literally, by the way. Like, for everyone that conflates trans and non-binary, and the word non-binary has not even existed on Google search and Google Trends since 2014. Receipts, clock it, catch it, just as I've always said. See, the thing about it is, like, if you're just, tapped into the ether, if you're just tapped into the way shit really works, right? You can know things without even having evidence for it. Like, I've always known, and I've always said, yeah, non-binary wasn't a thing before 2014. It's not valid because it's political. It was born out of politics, the over politicization that started around 2014, 2015. And I recently saw a graph that just showed that, right? Like, no one even searched for it before 2014. Meanwhile, it's like you can conflate it with trans if you want, but it doesn't make it so, right? You really can't conflate something like trans that it's been a concept, babe, for hundreds, thousands of years. Non-binary literally popped up in 2014. And y'all know I'm working on my belief in God. I feel like I'm getting closer, every month or so to what I really believe spiritually. But one thing I do believe in, because I'm looking at one right now, is demons. And you're a demon. All right, you guys, that is it for this episode of the Blaire White Project podcast. And just another plug for the tour that I'm doing of this live podcast in cities all across America. Tickets are available now, and Toronto, Canada, not just America. Tickets are available now. Link in the description. It is x1entertainment.com/Blaire White. You should also follow me on X, and you should follow me on Instagram. Because if you don't, I'm going to assume we have an issue here between us. And I really don't want to assume that. I don't want to believe that. Follow me. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, this channel, and my main channel, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.